as grandparents. So some of them may be referring them to by different names. And so in our area, most times they're a form of a grandparent, and they use and they come into ceremonial areas as part of ceremonial processes. And so when we talk about water, we talk about Mother Earth, we talked about the air and the cosmos, and now water. There's just so many things to appreciate around water and how that is so much a part of who we are, because just our general makeup of who we are, we're a very high percentage water. So I want to give this time to our honorable chairwoman from the Havasupai tribe, Carlotta Talusi. I want to introduce her, and I want to tell her and just tell her that we really appreciate her time. She is a very, very busy person, and I'll tell you why.
Is it recording? No, it's live, but my camera's.
It should be, it's recording on my side. Can you see that?
Yes, we're good. We're recording.
Okay, thank you. So this is who she is, at least what I've gathered from her, from the information that I found. Currently, she is a councilwoman for the Havasupai tribe, and she was also recently appointed to the White House Environmental Justice Council. And this is information that was gathered through an interview with KNAU. So I just want to give them this credit. In January, the Biden and Harris administration announced the creation of the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council. It's made up of more than 2,000 leaders from communities across the country that suffer disproportionate levels of pollution and related health and economic problems. They've been tasked with advising the administration and making policy suggestions on a range of environmental issues that have historically impacted many tribal lands and communities of color. Havasupai Councilwoman Talusi was appointed to that White House Council. And I'll leave it to her to introduce, herself in her tribal processes and protocol is. But I just want to welcome her into our space, and thank you so very much for having her be a part of this session today. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Nyasivio Carlotta Talusi exidke hangyo banyavam banye kwao kwekaihi ba evnyuaka ba kwaunyuaka ba ija kemo ejum vam banyavam nyahan ban ejum wak banye pyuin hange. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Carlotta Talusi. I'm from the Havasupai tribe. A lot of you, I think I know, I see some of your familiar names on the Zoom. But I'm still getting used to the Zoom thing. So I see all kinds of names, but not faces. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for the prayers this morning and all the wise words that were shared by our elders and some of the colleagues that spoke this morning. I just want to say thank you for that. Also thank Rose Tohi and the rest of the staff that have organized this Indigenous Peoples Day event. I did have a small slideshow that I sent to that Amber, my colleague, sent to to you all. I don't know if you are able to switch to that or if you got it on time. Just whenever you can switch to it, I'll bounce right over to it. But before I say anything further, I'd like to quickly introduce myself. When I was born and raised in Supai Canyon. I learned English at about 11 years old, and then I forgot again, and I relearned it again at about in the 8th grade, like 14 years old. And so I was raised around my great aunt and her husband and her 10 kids. I was the youngest from that big family, and my biological mother had some struggles as she was growing up and was going to boarding school. So my family thought she should finish school so I can so she can have an education. Back then we were all shipped off to boarding schools, and my mom was a senior, and she chose education so my aunt could raise me. And I came from like 8 aunties, and they were very had a lot of cultural knowledge, and also liked to sing a lot too, and our traditional songs. And I grew up around that. And then my stepdad was a hunter, so, and a farmer, so we would do a lot of farming in the village, and also a lot of hunting on the plateau. So back then it was still, we still lived off the earth, off the land. And during those teachings and those times when they would raise us, they would talk about a lot about the water. And they talk about this big lake underneath the Grand Canyon, or what is now the Coconino Plateau. They would talk about this huge lake underneath there. And as a young girl, I didn't really understand too much at the time. But it was, now I understand it's called the Red Wall Moab Aquifer. And that aquifer opens right up to Supai Village. It only drains into the Cataract Canyon. And from there, it created all these beautiful waterfalls. And the waterfalls also created springs, a lot of springs along the canyon. So we would walk to the springs and do our small introduction of who we are to the spring. And we would gather the spring water, and we'd use it for, my stepdad would use it for sweat lodge. And we'd use it for lots of things, bathing newborns, also using it for funerals. There was a lot of things that we used it for. And they also said that it comes a time when water is going to be very precious. Water is going to be more expensive than gold. So when they would say stuff like that, I didn't really know what to, as a young girl, really not know what to believe. But in my lifetime, I've learned that almost everything they've said is accurate. And they've also instilled in us to protect the water and protect this with your life if you have to. And so, as you all know, the Havasupai tribe has been fighting against international mining companies since I was 15 years old. And they came to the rims of the Grand Canyon and staked uranium claims all on the north and south rim of the canyon. At one point in time, there was about approximately 200,000 uranium claims on the north rim and the south rim. And that was in the early 1984, I believe it was, when they came to the tribe and offered monetary funds to the tribe, to the tribal council. And because I think they knew we were going to say no, because it was right next to our sacred mountain, Red Butte. So I'll go ahead and jump over to the slides here. This is an aerial shot of the Grand Canyon near this is called what Canyon Mine. And this is what is this destruction already that's occurring over there. They're seeking for uranium. And as they're looking for uranium, they tapped into coal too. So this sits right above the Red Walmawab Aquifer that I spoke of earlier. And to us, there's already destruction. There's already contamination to the land and to the earth. And if you would move to the next slide. So less than, as the crow flies, less than 30 miles, it creates these waterfalls. This is one of our waterfalls called Little Navajo. We call this one Little Navajo. And we're trying to protect these waters from the uranium mines that are up on near the White Mesa. See where the White Mesa is? And then you see the red, and then down here you see, I believe, the basalt. And so the mines are up on the top of the mesa. And but it's not on our reservation. It's adjacent to our reservation. So we have like 4 different waterfalls that, you know, are below the village. We have a village of 350 tribal members living down there. And then half of us live out here. Some of us moved out to go to school. Some of us moved out to go to the army. So a lot of families are moving out because of education. Our kids have to receive an education. So we have a lot of kids in Kingman or Flagstaff slowly infiltrating into the schools. A lot of our kids actually go to boarding school too. So it's a different world down there. And, you know, was brought up earlier, what would healing, how can we begin healing? And I just want to touch on this real quickly is I grew up in the 1970s. And in that time, the Grand Canyon National Park had taken over the Grand Canyon, which is our original homeland too. And they didn't want us near there. They didn't want Havasupai, they didn't want Navajo, they didn't want Hopis, anybody into that park. They only wanted white people. And unfortunately, there were some people still working in there, like my stepdad we would have to drive through there. And we were always escorted by the rangers off and on that park. And I remember being a 7-year-old child, terrified of the rangers and how racist they were and the words that they used. And I always remember that. And I know we need to start healing ourselves, but we need to heal through our children. I think teaching our children about different cultures and different groups and to respect one another. I think that's where we need to start, is through our children. But moving forward a little bit to the next slide here, as I mentioned earlier, the uranium mines, those are the orange yellow, are the mining claims. So right here, that was in 2008 is when they did an inventory on all the mines. So down at the bottom right-hand side, you'll see Canyon Mine, and that's the one you saw in the picture. And a little bit to the left is the Havasupai Reservation. So it's very close. That's why we put everything that the tribe has to stop these mines from starting. And at some point, it really felt like, I remember getting interviewed by a press one time, and this is like 8 years ago, and said, how does it feel to fight against a big corporation and a big government? How does it feel to you? You're just a small group of people, tribe. How does that feel? And it was a really, I had to think about that, you know, but then I thought faith is something we had. And faith was something that was brought earlier today in one of the presentations. And we have faith, and we will continue to to voice our opinion, to protect Mother Earth and the water. That's our job. You know, that was what my answer was. It's our job to protect this area for all future generations. So if I can move to the next slide. You know, it shows this is Kayak Forest Service land. And because of the 1872 mining law, Canyon Mine was grandfathered into this. And so when Ken Salazar passed the 1 million acre withdrawal to stop no new mines, it did not affect Canyon Mine. This one will go forward. It's grandfathered in. We're in the middle of a fight with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, who will be approving groundwater aquifer protection permits and air quality protection permits. That's just the state of the nature of the game right now, is that they're ready to scrape as many uranium and coal out of this mine. And they're going to go 24/7 is what I read. They're not going to stop. And this is the biggest fight that we have been having. And it's getting, I remember at times it'll get so close to starting and then something will happen to prevent them. So next slide, please. So what we did was we went back to our elders. We started talking to our elders about learning about what is uranium, what is the name of uranium, how do you say it in our language? And so they told us what it was. They said it was called ora, and they said that, and some of them would say uiduia, means hot rock, and that should never be disturbed or removed. If it's just removed, then it will hurt and harm people, was what we were told. So a lot of us were told at a young age, since 1980s, when this fight began, to speak about it, to talk about it, to bring as many people to the table as we possibly can. And so these are some of my tribal members here. And they traveled out of Supai Canyon and camped out at Red Butte, our sacred mountain, which is 3 miles from where they're standing at. They walked 3 miles there. This is like 3 years ago, this picture. And they stood in front of the mine and let the mine people know that we are human. We have a life. We don't want this to happen to this earth, to the water, and to our tribe, to our families. So I was very proud of them, because Havasupais, we just kind of keep to ourselves. Our ceremonies are private. We keep to ourselves, but because of this mine, we had to come out and we had to network with people and create relationships with people and allies, so that we can share a common goal of protecting the water in the Grand Canyon. So next slide, please. So our elders, a lot of them have passed on now, and I'm no longer a youth either. I'm knocking on the door of elderhood. And before they left, they told us a lot of stories about this mountain, Red Butte, which is an hour and 15 minutes northwest of Flagstaff, the road going to Grand Canyon National Park. And so this mountain goes all the way back into our creation stories, just like the San Francisco Peaks and Bill Williams Mountain. Those are all mountains that are special to us, that are like our churches, that are like our areas of creation stories. So, and they told us to protect it. So we went through this process called with the state and federal agencies, and declared this mountain a traditional cultural property site. And we thought it would protect it, but it's recognized as a traditional cultural property site. It's eligible for a National Historic Preservation Site. But the elders felt that it was good enough to keep it that way, because if you make the step to make it a National Historic Site, all our oral teachings and our ancient stories will be public. So I just wanted to let people know, because people always call about making this mountain a National Historic Site, but the elders didn't want that. So just wanted to share that connection that we have with Red Butte. We also call it Wikidwisa, or Wichqualqua, means the lungs of our Mother Earth. And so if you could just imagine, the lungs of our Mother Earth being struck, and what will happen, that's the danger that we're messing with here. So next slide, please. So every couple of years we come out of the canyon and we organize a big gathering out there. I know some of you have been out there with us, and we invite other tribes to join us. And just like we used to a long time ago, before we were all put on reservations, and you're in this border, you're on this reservation, and you guys stay here and don't go anywhere type thing. But before all that, we all intermingled. I was also told by a Navajo medicine man one time that we're all one people at one point. So, and he says that, I think about, in our creation stories, we also have stories of the twins. We have, and when I hear other tribes talk about their ways and their culture, it's parallel to the Havasupai teachings as well. So some of the elders said that you can't just sit at home and say this mountain is sacred. You have to go out there. You have to physically be out there, because it misses you. It misses us. It misses our language. It misses the songs. We have to go back there. And so we go on our own. I just came back from there the other day, and it was really a really nice visit. But in this particular case, not only did we go back to our sacred mountain, we're also protesting the mine. And so this is a sign that the Supais put together: stop uranium mining, save the Grand Canyon, support the Havasupai tribe. So this one ended up in the Western Navajo Nation parade. The elders were in a parade and came in second place. For those of you that remember that, but it was, the elders really liked it. We registered them in there, and we had a dance group, and we shared this message. This was on the side of one of the vehicles. So we had a really good time, but our story is always the same: is to protect our sacred mountains, protect the waters, share the message as far and wide as we can, seek as much support as we can, because water is going to be very precious. Water is going to be more expensive than gold, is what I was told when I was 10 years old. So here we are today in 2021, what my elders and taught us is really coming true. So next slide, please. I'm almost done here. Not to go too much into this, too much detail, you're welcome to this slide. You can share it with whoever you feel, but because we fought so hard, the history goes as, here, the environmental impact statement on that particular mine was approved by the Forest Service and the Plan of Operations in 1986. And so we worked hard to, we don't agree with what's happening, absolutely not. But even though our mountain has been declared a TCP, the mining companies are still given the green light to go by the state, and then they're also allowed to approve the general groundwater aquifer protection permit with very limited monitoring. So we believe if one mine goes, it's going to ripple effect to the next mine. And so we're worried about all the water in the Grand Canyon, all the springs in the Grand Canyon, and all the people that are living downstream. And this is just not a Havasupai issue or a Native American issue that's protecting sacred sites. It's about humankind, animal kind, and the protection of water. Next slide, please. So some people ask about what kind of mine this is. This is you drill down on the side. I can't remember the term right now, but you drill down to the side. The one on the right side is the hole that they're making. That's already all dug. The one on the left side shows the different breccia pipes. The yellow is what the uranium is. And then you see the different tables, water tables that they go through. So they're already going through that. And they pierced right through one of the aquifers, and now it's been spewing out water and messing up their whole operation plan. They don't know what to do with it. So they're starting to truck it up to Blanding, Utah, claiming that the water is not contaminated. So again, it's already, this destruction's already happening. And you see the red Walmawav aquifer down at the bottom. See, they're getting pretty close. So we shared this graph to show you the type of mine that is at Canyon Mine. Next, please. And this next one is just a chronology of how long that we've been fighting this mine. And, it just keeps going on and on about the different the amount of contamination that's occurring there. This is a fancy graph that one of my colleagues put together. And it really tells a big story about how much water is flooding out of the Canyon Mine site as we speak. Next slide. This one, my Canyon Mine shaft water contamination. So it shows the different levels of contamination here. Since 2016, it goes up. And those of you that are good at reading graphs, this is something that we wanted to add in to show the different water contaminations that are occurring there right now. Okay, next. Okay, how much time do I have? Oh, I don't want to go over time for the next speaker. But this is what's happening as the aquifer was pierced. They had no real plan, so they've made an alternative way of addressing it by making additional retention basins, and they're filling up very fast because the piercing of the water is just spewing out. So here they're using some sort of method of spraying the water so it'll be evaporated quickly. It's very windy up there for those of you that are used to the South Rim. It's always windy. And so the wind is carrying the contamination over these fences. The animals are getting into this particular pond. Because of the drought, the animals were digging under the fences. Those are just things that they didn't have plans for. So we continue to argue that the contamination is still occurring. The animals are already getting sick. I mean, why do you keep continuing to this happen? A disaster is going to happen. We kept warning them. The elders kept warning them, don't touch this spot. They did it, and now this happened. So go ahead, next slide, please. I know I'm talking amongst friends and people that really support the tribe. We really appreciate all the support that we've had. You know, we wouldn't be able to get this far without any of you. So, like I said, the proposed individual aquifer protection permit is before the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality right now, and being reviewed by ADEQ, and there should be this decision here anytime soon. So the uranium mines here, Canyon Mine, we believe will be permitted. And then it'll depend on the price of uranium. Then it'll depend on the cleanup. Who's gonna clean up after that? You know, so it's just still a lot of work coming to protect our water. Even if we shut this one down, there's going to be another fight here, another fight there. And you know, we believe that once this opens up, the mining companies are gonna think that they can do it anywhere and do it to anybody without being monitored. My biggest argument with the Forest Service and ADEQ is there's no monitoring. Who's monitoring? Because their argument is like, oh, Forest Service would say, we approve our job is to prove their plan of operations. That's what they say. So we approve it. But they're not monitoring. Who's monitoring? They don't have an answer. ADEQ says the same thing. We're in the job of giving out permits. And the tribe asks, well, who's monitoring? There's no answer for the tribe. Nobody's monitoring, as most of you know of what's happening over there. So back to the water, you know, like I said earlier, that we use the water for the sweat lodges, and we use the cedar and the sage for teas. And there's a lot of it that grows around here. Should we not collect those anymore? Should we be very careful on how we proceed forward? Those are all these questions that I have for my community. The animals that are drinking out of here, should we not hunt them anymore? You know, those are all the things that we're very worried about is, you know, the consumption of water goes through the animals and then goes through us humans. So, you know, as I said earlier, my parents were avid farmers and were also hunters. And all of that livelihood is being affected when you see things like this, mining. And it's really scary, even in my lifetime, of just the little things that I witnessed in my short life that I'm living. You know, we as Native people, well, me for sure, I had to learn how to speak English. I had to go to boarding school. And then after that, my community and my family and my elders said, you have to go to college because they're not going to take us seriously if we don't have a Haigui education, an American education. And then, you know, so I've been through all those hoops. And then it's still not enough. You know, it's still not enough. You know, my parents also raised us not to be racist. My parents never taught me that. I don't know how to be like that. So I just don't understand how people could be that way. And that's what I experienced as well. I'm trying my best to teach my children the best way that I was raised, you know, but now this generation's a little different. They're a little wired, a little different, a little faster, and they're not patient enough to sit and listen like we were. Like I was forced to sit next to the fire and stay awake in the winter to listen to these stories, so that we can have a connection to the mountains and can have a connection to the water. And the tribe also fought very hard against the snowball development, because our water comes from there too. It fills into the Red Wamwa Aquifer. So we fought very hard on that one. And I remember one of my elders was on the stand and he was just interrogated along with the Hopi traditional medicine people about our religion, because we have strict rules about our religion. We don't talk about it until winter. And the hearings were in the, I think, fall, spring. They had them at odd hours, and I mean odd days where we couldn't really talk about our culture. So it was like they were making fun of us. I was very angry at the time, but I was also raised that anger is not the answer. Violence is not the answer. So, you know, it's just, someone said values earlier today too, and faith and healing. All those things are very important for us humans now. It's a very tough time, and in this world where I can't even see any of you. I feel like I'm just talking to a screen. But you know, but all of those things I'd like to also reiterate from the former speakers, and the things that they said and the questions that were asked. I was thinking about that and what I was going to say, but I'm just a young lady and grew up on the res and, you know, toughed it out. And every time they said no, my mom would always say, there's every time there's a no, there's always a yes on the other side. She would always say that to me, you know. So this old teachings kind of stuck in my brain, and that's just the way I live my life, is all those, even though people are mean and hurtful, I don't, we shouldn't use that as a tool to hurt other people, or use that as a door to hurt and shame people, make people feel shame. We should not. And it starts from the home, and it starts from our children. And just wanted to share a little bit of my knowledge and my story. It was a tough time living in the canyon, but my parents, we were never poor. I never thought of us ever being poor. We had food to eat, we had animals, we had water. You know, I didn't see it as poor. But when other people look in to our community, you need healthcare, you need running water, you need electricity, you need a constitution, you need elections, you know, all these Americanized, imposed on our tribe has made us now so dependent on the federal government, you know, but we've been lucky as Havasupai, very, very blessed, I should say, that we have fresh water still, and we have tourism to sustain us. And so I thank you for inviting me. Thank you for all the nice words and encouragement that you guys share with me and my people. We're going to continue fighting the mines with your support. We need you guys right now to call your senators to protect the waters of the Grand Canyon for yourself and myself and my family and my community. And if there's any questions, I'm willing to take it on. Oh, and then one correction. I'm not the chairwoman. I'm just a council member. So I just wanted to make sure that was corrected. But other than that, you know, I think I was raised for this. I was born to lead my tribe, and I've learned how to accept it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it for the longest time, but this was something that my elders and my community has asked me to do. So I'm going to still continuing to speak out against the mines and the protection of sacred sites for my children, your children, and for the future of all mankind here in Arizona and around the world. So just wanted to leave you with that. Thank you so much. Maham Nija, Maham Oka.
Thank you, Honorable Lucy. I promoted you to Councilwoman. It's in the cards for you. So thank you really for your time. Those are some things that I think when a teaching from an Indigenous perspective, a teaching that goes with water and why it's so important is a story or that needs to be, told in the way that you told it, in the way that you said, this is, we're all in it, we're all one family, and we all need this water, and we need to just make sure that we're protecting it and taking care of it and using it in the right manner, and not have to deal with people that are deliberately contaminating. So I guess in that way, it's a teaching of what the values are within ourselves. Where do we have those values at? And I know that we here, this is just me personally speaking, I think we wouldn't otherwise have these conversations right now like this if we didn't have the support that we have here at the city. And I'm so very thankful for that. And so they're very thankful for the people who are at the grassroots voicing that concern, here at the city level. So I'm just so happy that you are where you at in the Biden and Harris administration doing the work that is so important. I appreciate you for that. So I hear from me for that. So
Thank you.
So from here, we're gonna transition to bridging and honoring water at our city. And I want to introduce Erin Young, and she is the water resource manager here at the city of Flagstaff. She is born for Ukrainian, that's who her mother is. I'm sorry, she is Ukrainian, her mother is, and she's born for Swedish. And I was telling her when we were asking her, I have to give a little share of Erin. Erin is, to me, a very wonderful person. And she loves the work that she does, taking care of the water here at the city. And when she told me her mom's lineage was Ukrainian, I looked at it, and the only thing I saw in that word, in that name, was rain. And I thought to myself, no wonder she's in water. And I thought that was really, one of those things people call God winks, that she's in the right place for the right reasons. And I just want to say that that about Erin, and I'm glad she's part of our city, so our city staff here. So Erin Young has served as the city's water resource manager here in Flagstaff for 8 years. Prior to joining the city, Erin spent 11 years working in the consulting field, helping to secure and bring water supplies to communities around Arizona and Nevada. She studied geology in college with a bachelor's degree from Arizona State University and a master's of science degree from NAU. So I just want to have you welcome Erin and have her do her magic on bridging to water. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Rose, so much for the introduction and for putting together the panel today, and a warm Indigenous Peoples Day to all on the call and all in the world. It is such an honor to be asked to speak today. And it's an honor to work for the City of Flagstaff. I'm just grateful to work for a government recognizing that we needed a bridge with our Indigenous population by having a program, having a Rose Tohi at the helm, leading us on this journey together. Let's see here if I can share, resume share. All right, so I hope that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it, Erin.
Perfect. And Carletta, it was lovely listening to you, and I'm sorry to hear about the challenges that you're facing and your tribe are facing, yet still having a positive outlook. And some of what I want to share about the city's water journey today is about challenges and just finding balance. And I think we're in a good place here with the city's water management, where we can find balance. And so very much appreciate listening to you, and congratulations on your appointment under the Biden administration. It's so important. And I'm just glad you're recognized for that. So with that, I'll start sharing the past, present, and future of water services in Flagstaff. First, a little about me. Water is certainly my element. I grew up in Minnesota in beautiful lake country, and my relatives go back many generations to this area, and I love learning today that many Indigenous tribes refer to water as a grandparent, because I wanted to be in the water, in the arms of a grandparent. That's how it feels to me. And this area is very special to me. And here's my daughter, checking out all the stones in the water, the stones that I will sit at and look at for hours at a time, wondering who in the past has touched the same stones. And coming to Arizona, I came to Arizona with my mom. She was not a cold country person, yet she landed with her Ukrainian parents in Fargo, North Dakota, where they had to give her up for adoption. And she later learned about 10 years ago that she was Ukrainian, and maybe that's why she's a warm climate person. So she moved to Arizona and I followed her. So I went from seeing these lakes all over Minnesota to wondering where the water was in Arizona and how there were lakes in Arizona, and not really seeing a lot of dams up into my 20s. So I learned that our water is incredibly precious where it does intersect with land surface as springs and our rivers in Arizona. And I've learned a lot about the lake underground, the sea aquifer. So I'll be talking a bit about that today. Let's see. So Flagstaff's water past sort of began, at least with how we know our water system today, at the end of the 1800s. The lumber industry landed in Flagstaff. The railroad industry, as a lot of us know, followed water where there were springs, and the Flagstaff community started growing. So as water services, we've been bringing water to people in industry here in Flagstaff for over 100 years. And our past history, which is maybe when we were still kind of in balance because we were in touch with using surface water, the effort to build this pipeline from the inner basin where we're collecting water underground, spring water that seeps into the ground and into our pipe system to Flagstaff, was a huge, huge deal back then. And then we imported water from the Lake Mary area. The Lake Mary dams are still quite flashy today. We don't use water from Lower Lake Mary currently. It just doesn't hold much water because of the karst and the sinkholes that's in the geology under the water. And then Upper Lake Mary holds more water, but it's still pretty flashy and dependent on good winters, and we don't have good winters every year. So it was sort of in the 40s planning for new water supplies. Groundwater was just an idea. Groundwater, other than really shallow water along the Rio de Flag, it wasn't enough to really grow a community on. And in the 40s, the city was talking to geologists about this underground lake and could we access that water. An engineering water report in 1947 forecasted water for Flagstaff for 50 years to a population projection of just 14,700 people and a water use of 95 gallons per person per day. And by the way, that's about what our community uses per person per day currently. But I'm going to talk about how we got there, and we got a little out of control with our water use. But I just found this pretty fascinating. The population in 2000 was more like 65,000 people. So how did we get to this population? Well, sea aquifer drilling. In the 1950s, we were successful drilling 2,000 feet deep to the sea aquifer. A local family, the Perry family, was very involved with drilling many of the wells listed here on the left. The Woody Mountain #1 and Woody Mountain #2 brings 375 gallons a minute from the precious pure water in the sea aquifer. We've been drilling wells ever since, and our community has grown because of groundwater. This graph is showing where we get our water supplies from over time, starting in 1949. We talk in water volume in terms of acre feet each year. In this case, it's each year. And an acre is about the size of a football field. And then an acre foot is 1 foot deep of water. And so we were sort of, using water in the 40s. And the blue is showing Upper Lake Mary over time, and the purple is our inner basin spring water over time. The other colors are all different locations of our well fields. So the darker gray is our Woody Mountain well field. And basically, like, each dip that we're looking at is when our surface water supply wasn't enough to meet the demand, which is this curve here. And I'm sorry, I'm showing like data and graphs, but I couldn't help myself. But what I love about this illustration is it shows when surface water wasn't enough to meet the demand of the community, and just how much now we rely on groundwater for this community. We were, using about 95 gallons a person a day in the 40s, coming into the 50s, and then water use skyrocketed, and partly due to population. But what I wanted to touch on today is I think we're in a place where we can find balance with our strong water conservation program, our strong sustainability efforts, and now with our Indigenous representation at the City of Flagstaff as well. So what have we done since that peak, which was right around 1990? This chart is showing gallons per person per day. So this is not just what you use in your home. It's all the water used in Flagstaff at the university, at restaurants, divided by our population number. So it's just a way to track how much water we're using, and if we want to change that trend, we can make changes and continue tracking. So what have we done since 1990? Well, national plumbing codes have changed. So as those improve, you go to remodel your bathroom and you're going to get more efficient fixtures even without trying. But our city council really took action in around the late 80s and 1990 by adopting tiered residential rates. So the more water you use, the more you pay, trying to curb what was probably a lot of outdoor use since the 40s. And we introduced customer classes where different categories of industrial or commercial use pay different rates. We started a toilet rebate program, and I will tell you, it kills me to see running toilets or just thinking about our really awesome sea aquifer water. Toilets are important. They're sanitary and they keep us healthy with the whole wastewater treatment process. However, we should be as efficient as we can in how much water we have in our toilets. So we still have a toilet rebate program today. Reclaimed water expansion in the 90s is actually water reuse. It reduces the amount of potable water that we use in the community. So that was a big reduction. Today, about 20% of all the water used in Flagstaff, 20% is reclaimed water. And we have a very strong water conservation program, which was established officially in 2003. We have a strong education program, rebates, odd even watering days. We have our water team out talking with our community about how we can maybe help them be more efficient with water use. And our city council adopted a water conservation strategic plan in 2020, which has actually set targets for water resource planning. And on the utility side, we're actually being as efficient as we can, just taking strides over time at reducing leaks in our system, our distribution system, tightening up our metering system. Water is very important in all aspects. So we have to do our best to track it and not waste it. And we're doing a great job. As you can see, the curve is dropping with population increasing, and our residential use is shown in the lower blue, and kind of the non-residential commercial use gallons per capita in orange. So everything is dropping still. We have an awesome water conservation program in Flagstaff. It's actually known around the country. We get calls from folks with, running programs, water conservation programs in other states. Huge kudos to Dr. Tamara Lawless, lower right of the slide. This is her program. She is a water warrior. She got the Water Conservation Strategic Plan, the first one we've ever had, that involved a lot of community outreach and hard work by many faces that you see here. Our former Mayor Evans was very active with our water conservation programming and with the Mayor's Challenge. So we've just made a big push for water conservation. And one of our former water conservation specialists, Audrey Cruz, she started a water contest several years ago during Water Awareness Month. And, really probably, at least in recent times, a big step towards bridging kind of more the transactional work that a water utility does and bridging into integrating more of the transformational in what we're doing right now, and just talking with each other about Indigenous Peoples Day, learning from each other. So the art contest every year is actually pretty amazing. And water resource planning, so finding balance, or what is our future, and that's kind of my role. I work at the direction of our city manager's office and city council, our director of water services, and this position was hired in 2008, and we immediately started the process of acquiring an adequate water supply through the Department of Water Resources. This is something we don't have to do. As a community, we elected into this, and this is one reason why I think we're great stewards of water management for a rural Arizona community. We now operate under that framework of water management. We've set water conservation goals. We're securing future water supplies, and it's all based on, as Sarah Dector was saying earlier, our regional plan. So what is the build out? How much water do we need, and where will we get that water supply? And we don't want to impact our neighbors with extraction or with development or with securing any of the water supplies. So we're just proactive as a community. Part of my work is protecting watersheds, which is the next conversation on the panel. 80% of our water supply comes from forested terrain around Flagstaff. So these fires, although fire is healthy, we don't want to see the unhealthy fires that could very negatively impact our water supply. I'm also a huge fan of monitoring our groundwater conditions. So I'm always kind of hounding our water production staff for groundwater levels. Whenever we shut a well off, we want to know what level it comes back to so we can determine if there's an impact to the aquifer of pumping over time. And then I'm also involved in statewide planning efforts. So I just wanted to share the Water Conservation Strategic Plan, and we're looking at a graph of our water supplies, and we're looking at a demand curve, assuming that we're using 104 gallons per capita per day. And if we were to reduce that, which we think we can do, to 80 gallons per capita per day, we can push off this additional water supply need out by over a decade. So this is where Tamara's work comes into play. And I'm not sure how much more time I have because I can't see a clock, but let's see here. Okay, I think I have a couple minutes and I only have a couple more slides, so I think we're good. So again, we plan for water demands through the regional plan process. So if you buy or invest in living in Flagstaff, you're going to have water for generations, provided we maintain over time the efforts that we're involved in today and working with our neighbors. So water services, I do believe that we are stewards of water resources in Arizona. We have award-winning programs. Many years ago, City Council had a goal to be #1 in the nation in water conservation, or at least to be recognized in the top for programs, and we are that now. Again, we have our designation of adequate water supply. We're investing in the Sea Aquifer monitoring program with BIA, with the Navajo Nation and other partners through the U.S. Geological Survey. So again, that's something we opt into to make sure we're investing in understanding groundwater conditions so that we can protect places like Havasupai. And even though that's a different aquifer, that is still regionally very important to us, as demonstrated through our activity in the Coconino Plateau Watershed Partnership. And we actually went through a groundwater modeling exercise with the Navajo Nation several years ago now, looking at pumping from Red Gap Ranch and from the Navajo Nation just north of Red Gap Ranch, and what our collective pumping could do to riparian areas in Clear Creek, Chevelon Creek, the LCR area. So we really want to know and understand before we just do. And we're always working with water rights. That's really important to providing certainty to our communities. How much water do we have to use? And I mentioned the partnership, the Kokanee Plateau Watershed Partnership. This is a monthly meeting, the last Friday of every month, typically at the U.S. Geological Survey, but we've been online now because of COVID for a while, but I'm sure we'll return back into in-person meetings. But I love these meetings because you'll see this long list of participants, and Havasupai tribe, they participate on a regular basis. And it's just a great time to catch up and hear about the issues of our constituents, and we work on things together. One of those is an ecosystem services assessment, and that started with a consultant. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. Kyra Russo, I can't believe her name escaped me, but this is her bread and butter. It's learning about having conversations, learning about issues, and trying to come to resolutions through communication. So her task one was holding stakeholder interviews with the group and helping us sort of define the issues that we wanted to tackle with a ecosystem services assessment. And what is, ecosystem services are sort of these benefits that we don't necessarily think about, that we obtain from the ecosystems that contribute to our well-being. But there's no monetary value necessarily to them. So how would we embed, like in water management, the services that we get from our environment? Let's just think of San Francisco Peaks, the Walnut Canyon National Monument. We have so many places around here. So how do we bring those in as a visible or as a voice into our decision making? So that was kind of the effort, one example through the partnership of things that we work on together. So I hope what I've shared with you is interesting and touches on the topics of today, about the value of water, bridging our understanding of each other, hearing each other, and bringing balance. And a huge shout out again, Rose, to you for putting this together and for inviting me. We do want to hear perspectives of anyone who wants to share. So we have a lot of resources at our website. We do have monthly Water Commission meetings. Yes, and I actually put Mary and Lee's contact information under City Council, but she is who you can contact if you'd like to join public participation for a Water Commission meeting, third Thursday each month at 4 p.m. And of course, your City Council meetings is a wonderful place to share your voice publicly. I have a whiteboard outside my office. Here are some fun notes from my daughter a couple years ago. And and then attending the Coconino Plateau Watershed Partnership meetings, another great place to talk water. So with that, that concludes my talk, and I'll get out. Thank you so much, Rose.
Thank you, Erin. I really appreciate your time that you spent with us as well. That's a lot of information, and I know that there's people who like the graphs, just to tease you, but it tells a story. So, but thank you. Seriously though, thank you for your time and for partnering with our Councilwoman to Lucy on this topic and trying to get that that information, valuable information about water on a different, I guess, on a different platform, so that we're educating each other on these things. So thank you. And the next one is going to be on fire. Not literally, but it's going to be on fire. And that's going to be our grandparent fire with Diné Cultural Share on fire, and then also bridging to fire management. And that's going to be at 3:15. So you have a little bit of time to go and get maybe a snack or walk around the block or something. All right, thank you. We'll see you next session.
Rose.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just testing my mic.
Oh, hi, Jason.
Yeah, good afternoon. Just listening. So I'll be back in 20 minutes.
You're a little bit choppy.
Okay, ciao. Okay, I'm trying to